Stop listening to all of the haters in your life. Stop listening to the people that don't really know you. Stop listening to the voice that says you'll never be enough. Stop listening to the liars that don't even care for you enough to tell you the truth. That don't truly see you the way you actually are. Don't listen to the people that always assume the worst. Don't listen to the people that think they know best. Don't listen to the strangers that are always judging you, regardless of what you've done. Don't listen to the people that have no idea what you go through each day. Don't listen to the people that always assume the worst and sometimes the best, believing that they are always right. Be careful when listening to people who always call you the best at everything. Be careful when listening to people who say one thing but mean another. Be careful when around other people who think they know you and have the best intentions, but don't actually see you for who you are. Be careful also when listening to me speak, because I know I'm not always right. To make sure that you never say a lie. I try to be, but I can't guarantee that I am. Be careful when speaking to others, be it for encouragement or just to talk. You don't want to be caught in a lie.
I'm the Yang!
Be especially careful when telling others things you know. Because what if you're misinformed? What if your information is false? Guard your ways in every aspect that you can. Don't assume that you're always right. Don't assume that you know the truth. Don't assume that you are right about anything. It is easy to be deceived, and even easier to spread lies without meaning to. Never assume that you are the one who has all the answers. Never assume you're the smartest person in the room. Never assume you're the dumbest person in the room. There's always going to be that one person that says something that will make you laugh. Find ways to be respectful to everybody. You'll be seen as smart and intellectual. Find ways to be polite to other people. And above all, you don't always have to open your mouth. Sometimes not saying anything will make you look even smarter, more respectful, and much more agreeable to be around. Always make sure that your facts are in fact correct by multiple sources before sharing them. Make sure you do your research before actually saying something. If it's something you're passionate about, make sure your information is up to date. You don't want to be seen as a fool. If you're careful, you won't be seen as wrong, a liar, a fool, or at worst, the person that says anything and means nothing. Try not to say a bunch of nonsense. It especially is seen as foolishness. If you really want to impress somebody, it doesn't all have to be on the thing you see in the mirror. A lot of it that counts the most comes from within. People easily forget faces and names. People struggle to forget about kindnesses and the character of a person that they meet. It is much more difficult to fake wisdom and foolishness than it is beauty. Know enough makeup tips, and you can cover up any flaw you think you have on your face. Know where to get the right things, and you can go from looking fat to skinny. But it is so much more difficult to consistently cover up who you are inside. Try not to sound cool, because sometimes what people consider to be cool can end up being foolish. Ask any celebrity, whether they're in the right or not, it still can look like foolishness. Don't disrespect people who are older than you. Chances are they probably know better. But also, make sure you can verify whether or not they're telling the truth. That isn't to say that they can't be trusted, but you never know, and it pays to be more careful. Don't assume that just because I make videos that I know all the answers. Never assume that whether or not I sound smart means that I must be smart or I must be stupid. And also, never assume that you are better than everybody else. There's always going to be that one moment where your overconfidence loses your place in whatever situation you're in, and you end up losing. It's always best to be careful with what you have to think about and how to describe it to others. Meaning, it's always best to choose your words wisely. Case in point. Too eloquent, people don't understand you. Too basic, people think you're making fun of them. It doesn't hurt to ask for advice. Just make sure you can verify that it's true. People are crazy these days, and you never know. I do not recommend becoming paranoid, just being careful. Never assume that just because you feel a certain way, that must be the truth. As my mother always says, your feelings will lie. They come and go very easily and are so interchangeable. Be it a woman or a man, feelings come and go as quick as a breath. You have to ground yourself in facts, things you absolutely know to be true. You must never forget what your parents know. Whenever they say something that to you seems wrong, maybe there's a reason behind it. Same also with the people in your life. It's always best to consider why people say something rather than simply what they're saying and whether or not you agree with it. Because oftentimes there's a reason for why they would say something like that. It's always best to have a plan, yet also be willing to go along with something if plans change. Not in the sense where you're willing to do anything, mind you, but you're not so rigid and stubborn in your plan that you freeze and panic. It's best to treasure human connections rather than a fake connection. In other words, don't choose a relationship that you can't spend face to face with. People need other people. I cannot stress this enough. We need each other to survive in this crazy world. The country is called the United States for a reason. The United Kingdom for a reason. The United Nations for a reason. If we keep trying to keep to ourselves and isolating ourselves from everybody else, what are we? A bunch of people, some sharing an idea, some sharing an agenda, and some just wanting to keep on living in this world. Not getting into trouble, not being seen as trouble, just living in peace. I wish that people would stop pitting each other against one another in anything. Politics, even. Not that politics is the focus here, but it's driving me nuts how much I'm becoming aware of both sides being biased. The right lies about the left lies about the right. It's hard to know who's telling the truth anymore. Perhaps it's best to do the research yourself with as many sources as you can that are known for being reputable for any side, for any topic. Sources that only tell the truth. Perhaps it's best to not rely on the internet so much. I know, shocker. Completely irrational. I must be insane to say don't use the internet all the time. But a long time ago, people used to make connections face to face. Is that so bad? I don't know. I've yet to test this theory out completely. Then again, I try not to always use the internet, but lately I have been using it a lot. Which is why it's always best to find reasons to get out in the world. So back to what I was saying earlier. Don't assume you know everything. And don't listen to people who are naysayers. Be careful when listening to people who are not naysayers, but rather encouraging you. Make sure that what they're telling you is accurate and be fair to yourself. Don't put yourself down. Don't build yourself up. Be honest with yourself. Starting with this. You do matter. That is a fact. I'm not saying that to make you feel better, although that doesn't count as not part of my intention. But it is a simple fact. You matter. You have value. Anyone who says otherwise is jealous or simply angry for whatever reason. But it's not your job to figure it out. And it's not your job to fix them. It's not their job to tell you who you are. But don't belittle them because they belittle you. That won't help them. Maybe what they really need is someone to tell them that they matter as well. It won't be easy telling someone who only belittles you that they are important as well. But maybe it'll be more rewarding. Maybe. Just maybe. Perhaps instead of constantly belittling one another, lying about each other, what if we instead see the good in each other? Focus on things that we all get right. Focus on things that we do know something about. And focus on things that we can all come together on. With all the evil that is in this world, you would think we would find reasons to turn to one another as a unified force. But I guess not. Far be it from me to try and be the one to spearhead such a thing. However, I would like to encourage it. I know I'm not the smartest person in the room. I get things wrong all the time. One of the reasons why I invite people to help me stay correct in the comments section, because I know I'm not perfect. I never will be. But I would like to be accurate with what I say. That is important to me. I don't think it's fair for people to set such high expectations of one another and yet low expectations of themselves, or vice versa. High expectations of themselves and low expectations of everybody else. It's not fair, nor is it kind. And we all need kindness now more than ever. If we find things that we like about ourselves and use that as a baseline for remembering the truth, that we have value, that we have meaning, that we're not worthless, that we can make a difference, that we can't change the entire world overnight, but simply the people around us for the better, maybe that's a good place to start. If we were to simply focus more on how to bring one another together in a loving, kind, merciful, gentle way, instead of screaming at one another for whatever reason, and it could be over anything, like whether or not Starbucks is worth drinking at. If you love coffee, you don't have to get into an argument over someone who prefers scooters. You can always peacefully agree to disagree. It doesn't make sense to me why some people would rather yell over whether or not Starbucks or scooters is the best. Can't we simply agree that both offer good flavors and that coffee is essential in the morning? If we could come to an agreement with just coffee, there's hope that we can come to an agreement with other things. All we got to do is just try to see a way for us to connect to one another in the sense where we don't always argue. We don't always hate each other. You don't have to dislike somebody simply because they don't agree with you. It is possible to like people who have different opinions. It may not be possible for you to always agree with them, but you can at least hear them out and check yourself to see if maybe you're in the wrong. I have to do this to myself all the time because I value being accurate and correct with what I say. When I listen to other people with different opinions, I reflect on what my own opinion is and see if maybe I'm in the wrong. It takes a lot of humility for some, and for others it comes easier. But I like to think that it is an important step in safeguarding yourself against arrogance. Maybe I'm looking at it wrong, or maybe I'm saying it wrong, but that's how I choose to say it. And there's nothing wrong with simply keeping your eyes open and your mouth shut. If you believe that you are right, you don't always have to say it. You could just wait it out and not have to say anything. But either way, even if you are in the wrong, it's always best to know when to be quiet. I'm not saying this to shame other people, but rather, you don't always have to fill the silence with words. You don't always have to say something to be right. And isn't it interesting how ironic it is when people get mad? The loud ones sometimes are the most violent, but the scariest ones are the ones that are quiet. If scary is what you want to be when you're angry, choose quiet. Just an opinion, not a fact that I can verify. But it is certainly intimidating. There is a design for everything. Off topic, I know, but if you look around, everything fits together. The environment, nature, machines, people. There is a design and a purpose behind everything. Maybe we can find a design and a purpose for unifying people. If we can all agree that a certain issue needs to be dealt with, we can unify against it. Stand a bigger chance against defeating it. But rather than just always shouting how you're right and everybody else is wrong, maybe we need to appeal to other people's differences. I'm not much of a negotiator, so I am not 100% certain as to what that would look like or sound like. I just know it needs to be done gently, without shaming other people, because shaming will only divide, in my opinion. But everybody's different. I'm not saying my way is the only way, but it is a way. And whenever I doubt myself, sometimes I have to remind myself, I'm not everybody. I can't control everyone. And I can't decide what everybody thinks of me. I can try to do everything right, but somebody will always have a different opinion. And that's okay. Not everyone has to think the same. Not everyone has to believe the same. Not everyone has to be the same. There is beauty in differences, is there not? There is beauty and uniqueness in those that are different. Those that are outliers. And sometimes that which we bully ends up becoming more powerful than us. So of course there's wisdom in not bullying. Of course there's wisdom in showing love. I have to keep myself in check from hating others. I know, shocker. Someone who professes love so much, capable of hatred, my goodness. But even I am guilty. Even I have problems. And I freely acknowledge them. How can I fix them if I don't acknowledge that they exist? How can I get better if I don't see a doctor? How can I learn the answer if I don't seek an expert? There's nothing wrong with needing help. There's nothing wrong with not being able to do something on your own. True, it's a sign of strength, not needing to rely on others, but nobody is expected to do it on their own. Nobody should be anyways. But again, impossibly high standards exist for some reason. Nowhere in the Bible does it say, apparently, that you have to do things on your own. So even though men are expected to be leaders, I don't think it's fair for them to think they can't show any sign of feeling, any sign of emotion. That's not fair. I think maybe we get that idea from the fact that women are more challenged in keeping it in. Perhaps that's why it is so popular these days for women to be unfeeling like men. But that's not strength. It's cowardice. Cowardice, you say? You're probably thinking, how is it cowardice? You're keeping a straight face through difficult times. Yes, but you're not being brave by opening up to others. You're not showing true strength by showing others how weak you truly are feeling inside. And thankfully, feelings will lie. That is a mercy, because if you feel weak, the truth obviously must be that you are not as weak as you think. Especially when you turn to others for help. Men, if you have a good woman in your life, and you have the courage, the audacity to open up to her and tell her that you're not doing okay, that, in my opinion, is true bravery. Because you're letting someone else help you. I could be wrong, but that is how I see it. I understand the mentality where you have to always do it on your own. Be the rock, be the strength that she can lean on. But her job is to help you as well. And she can't do that if you don't tell her what's going on. That creates a friction. Her job is to nurture the inside. Your job is to protect the outside. It's probably an overestimation, but it's a realization that I've come to. It's an opinion. While you are her strength to lean on, physically, emotionally, she is yours as well. And it's okay to let her in. If you are not doing okay, don't let it go unnoticed to the point where it builds until it's an all-out fight. One could easily think of it as a pressure valve. If you let it trickle, there won't be any pressure buildup. And by trickle, I don't mean being harsh or rude, but talking things through. When you're talking, the water is running. When you don't talk, the water isn't running. And depending on the situation, if you let that pressure build, you could end up with a broken pipe. In other words, a fight. And then things are harder to put back together. It's not easy, I imagine, learning to talk about your feelings, about how you're doing. Some people would rather bottle it up inside. Sometimes I'm like that, so I would know. but it's not the best solution. We all need to find ways to open up to one another. Otherwise, we risk isolationism. And we might as well be miles away from each other if we don't open up. You don't have to be impatient with yourself. You don't have to expect yourself to open up right away. Find a way to make it work. Take your time. Be patient with yourself. Be forgiving to yourself. If you've got a good person in your life that you can depend on, hold on to them. Don't let them slip away. And it's okay to ask for help from outside sources, such as therapy or people you look up to that you know have better relationships. Don't turn to people that are bad influences, obviously. Don't turn to people that don't know all the answers. Or rather, accept that they don't know all the answers and figure it out together, or perhaps find a different way. This is an example that I don't know all the answers. Whether or not you listen to me is up to you, but don't expect me to know everything. Whether or not the people you love knows everything, that's not up to me or anybody else to determine or judge. It's okay to not know an answer. I can't stress it enough because I'm one of those people where if I don't know the answer, it bothers me. It's okay to learn to let go and say, you know what? I don't need to know the answer to this. I can just trust. I don't know how it works, but it works. And that's a hard lesson for some of us, learning to let things go. It's a hard lesson to learn how to let go of our pride, our stubbornness, our arrogance, whatever the issue is. It's not easy. But perhaps it's very freeing once we do learn to let it go. And for a lot of us, we need to learn to let go of the grudges we hold against the person in the mirror. I know I had to learn to like what I see. I'm not in love with the person I see in the sense where I care only about that person. But I am in love in the sense where I respect what I see and I appreciate it. I don't mind what I see. I think it's okay to look this way, the way that I do. I know you see me obsessing over my hair. That's just how I am. I'm a bit of a control freak. I'm learning how to, rather, I should say I'm trying to learn how to let go controlling other aspects of my life. Aspects that maybe are not so good for me to focus on. Aspects, perhaps, that are rather damaging to me instead of helping me. Given enough time, we can learn from our flaws, learn to change and adapt. We just need a little help is all. And there's nothing wrong with changing how you look through plastic surgery. I personally am against it, but it is still your face to decide what you want to do with it. I personally am of the perspective of learning to appreciate what my DNA says I look like, rather than what I say I should look like. If you look carefully, I don't like how my nose looks. That's a personal opinion. But I've learned to like it and not hate it. I've learned to like my eyes, even though I need glasses, my hair color, even though I would prefer a different color at times, the shape of my body, even though it isn't the worst. There will always be things I don't like about myself. But if you replace those thoughts with things you do like about yourself, that person in the mirror becomes easier to tolerate looking at every time. One of the ways that I help myself to cope is by doing the things I do with my hair, because that is something I like. Granted, maybe I put a little too much attention into it. Maybe that's a pride issue. God will reveal it to me if it is an issue. The thing is, I don't let other people determine my worth. Be it because of what they do or do not like, what I do or do not like. It's a complicated thing, learning to appreciate what you see in the mirror. For some, it's harder than others. And you have my sympathy if it is more difficult. But know this, your value is not diminished by how quote-unquote normal you look. Your value is determined by something far more complex, far more infinite, and far more wise than any of us. I don't know if any of this helps or if the sound of my voice is so obnoxiously boring that you cannot stand it. Either way, if you are able to glean some wisdom from this, awesome. If not, forget it. My value isn't determined by whether or not I can help people. My value is determined by something far greater. Everybody's value is determined by something far greater than us. It doesn't matter who you are, what you do, what you're good at, what you look like, how much money you make, what color your skin is. There's a reason that we're here. And it is not to live up to other humans' expectations. Although some of us would like that, it is not this sole reason that we are here. And why am I getting all gussied up? It's not just to make me feel better. I'm going somewhere. Although I don't exactly need to tell people. Oh, I love doing this. Instead of focusing on things I do wrong, I'd rather focus on things I do right. Things that I can do. Just think, if more people had the attitude where they didn't have to live up to other people's expectations, how much more confident we'd be in who we are as people. If we all knew that our value was something far more permanent than what we think it to be, how much more appreciative we might be of life, of the people we see in the mirror,